Hey, what up, guys? So coming to you this morning, continuing the heavyweight division, my favorite division in all of boxing. I absolutely love the heavyweights. This video, we're going to discuss numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 4 different heavyweights. In the first video, we discussed numbers 8, 9, and 10 and the dropouts. We had 2 dropouts. Number 8 was former champ Joseph Parker. Number 9 was former champ Alexander Povetkin. And then we had a 2-way tie for 10th between former world title challengers Michael Hunter and Kubrat Pulev. So now let's jump right into this video as we start with the number 7 heavyweight in the world right now. He is top contender from the United Kingdom, Dillian Whyte. Whyte entered the year number 5. He drops a couple spots. He waited around for a big fight. He's coming off of 2018 where he was the heavyweight of the year. He had knocked out Lucas Brown. He got a hard-fought decision win over former champ Joseph Parker. And then he went in and got the knockout of the year, knocking out Derek Chisora and knocking him out cold. So he entered this year really hoping for the fight with Anthony Joshua. Joshua even said that he was going to fight him after his fight in December of 2018, but Joshua never fought him in a rematch. So Whyte waited around for something. When it didn't come, he took an opportunity to go after the interim WBC title against Oscar Rivas, undefeated Oscar Rivas. So he came in a favorite in that fight, but Rivas had pulled off a big upset over Bryant Jennings in January and was looking to do the same in the rematch, or in this fight against Dillian Whyte. But Dillian Whyte just, outboxed and outworked Rivas. Rivas was fighting hard, though, and he even knocked Dillian Whyte down in the late rounds. But Whyte got up, finished the fight strong, and earned a convincing 12-round unanimous decision where he became the WBC's interim champion. But shortly after that, he had tested positive for some kind of drug, and the WBC immediately stripped him of the interim title. And things were looking pretty bleak, but he was trying to get the B sample shown of the positive drug test. He was trying to get the B sample to be shown finally. And the UKAD really lagged on that. So he was really frustrated. Finally, though, he signed on. He was allowed to fight. And, he was being told that he was going to get cleared of everything, but nothing was official. Then he took a fight in December on the Joshua Ruiz rematch undercard, as he would take on Mariusz Wach, I believe. And, he had a tough time, but he came in his heaviest of his career. You could tell, it was a last-minute fight for him. So he was kind of just trying to stay busy. And he earned a hard-fought 12-round unanimous decision and is now... but right before that, the day before, he got cleared of the charges. So he's good to go. He was reinstated as the interim WBC champion. And 2020 looks like it's going to be the year where he gets his world title shot. He could really make an impact on things because Deontay Wilder's fighting Tyson Fury next, but Dillian Whyte is supposed to be next in line to face the winner. But they're talking rematch between Wilder and Fury, that there's an option in there for the loser to take on the rematch. What happens after that? There's also the option of Anthony Joshua trying to fight the winner. So it's kind of a pickle right here. And I really hope Dillian Whyte gets his opportunity because he deserves it. Dillian Whyte's been taking opponents that, this guy's the hardest working fighter in my opinion because he's taken a lot of risky fights and he's already a top contender. So he really doesn't need to be taking this risk anymore and risking a world title shot. But he doesn't care. He wants to fight and beat the best. He's still banging around and he's trying to get himself that world title shot. And I hope it happens for him in 2020. Right now, he is currently 31 years old. So he's in his prime, and he really needs to get that big opportunity this year. He still has only 1 loss. He's 27-1, 18 knockouts. He's a good boxer, got decent, good solid power, so he keeps you honest. And just a well-rounded heavyweight. And I just want to see him get in the ring with somebody in the top 5 because he deserves an opportunity. And I really think, and I really hope, and I do believe that that's going to happen in 2020, so we'll see. Okay, next at number 6 is the undefeated and former undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, Alexander Usyk of the Ukraine. Usyk entered the year undefeated and as the undisputed cruiserweight champion still. But he had he was coming off of being the fighter of the year in all of boxing in 2018, where he defeated Maris Bradis in the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series Season 1 to unify belts. And then in the finals, he became the undisputed cruiserweight champion, unifying all 4 titles with a dominant 12-round unanimous decision over previously undefeated Murat Gassiev, who is also a unified champ. He absolutely dominated Gassiev, one-sided 12-round decision in the final. That raised his stock through the roof. And then in November, he decided to defend his title, his undisputed title against Tony Bellew, and he dominated Bellew, stopping him in the 8th round of a really good fight, and that put him in line. So most people felt coming into 2019 that he was going to move up to heavyweight, and he confirmed that, and he had a fight signed for May against Carlos Takam, veteran Carlos Takam, but he was forced to pull out of that fight with an injury in training. He held on to the titles. He one by one, he vacated the cruiserweight titles, and then finally in October, in the main event of a DAZN card, he got back in the ring, taking on little known, I think it was Chaz Witherspoon, and he dominated Witherspoon to a 7th round TKO victory in his debut at heavyweight. And that's all he ended up doing in 2019. Heading into 2020, he is the WBO's #1 ranked contender, and he has been ordered to challenge for the world title. He's 17-0, 13 knockouts, and he wants a world title. The question is he going to be... right now, the WBO has ordered him to face Anthony Joshua. Now, Anthony Joshua has a mandatory due with the IBF as well against Kubrat Pulev. He wants to get that mandatory out of the way first, and then face off against Usyk after that, later in the year. Does Usyk want to do that is the big question. I was surprised that he didn't make a request to face off against what's-his-name later in the year and give himself a fight in between, because I think he needs that. But it's kind of a good move, but it's a risky move. If he doesn't get the Joshua fight, he could fight for the vacant title, secure his heavyweight championship, and then face Joshua later in a unification bout. That's what they're talking about doing. Let Joshua fight his mandatory, let Usyk fight for the vacant belt, and then the two face off later in the year, unifying the three world titles again. But that changes the opponent selection, and right now, I think Usyk, it wasn't his best performance when he beat Witherspoon. I think he needs to take his time and choose wisely who he's going to fight next. I think he needs one more fight against a very solid heavyweight, but not a top 5, top 10 guy. They're talking about him and Derek Chisora. I think that's a fight he needs to take. I think he needs to tell the WBO that he'll take step-aside money and he'll wait for his mandatory shot against Anthony Joshua and go after Derek Chisora. Because if he doesn't and Anthony Joshua vacates the title, then Usyk has to fight for the vacant title against Joseph Parker, former heavyweight champ. That changes the whole game right there, because Parker is a very live heavyweight and underdog, and I really think Parker could pull off the upset against Usyk. But, it's really up to him and what he believes he can do. I still think he'd be the favorite going in against Parker, and we got to see what opportunity comes his way and if it can be worked out with the WBO. But he's got a lot of say-so in this. I think it's going to be based on what he decides to do. Personally, I feel he should forego the title shot for now and take on Derek Chisora and get his feet wet more at heavyweight, and then go after Anthony Joshua later in the year in a mandatory fight. But we'll see what he decides to do. We could see him fighting for a world title next on DAZN. Next, and finishing the year number 5 at heavyweight, is former world title challenger, 2-time world title challenger, Luis Ortiz. Ortiz entered the year coming off of 2018, where he was in one of the fights of the year against Deontay Wilder for the world title, and he got stopped in the 10th round of a fucking fantastic heavyweight battle, one of the best of the last 20 years. That, though, really, that hurt him, but he bounced back, got a couple wins against nobodies, and then in in March of 2019, he came in trying to move himself back in line, and he got a kind of a workmanlike but solid decision victory over Christian Hammer. He waited around and got the good news that Deontay Wilder was going to give him a rematch, and in November, that rematch came, and it was a very highly anticipated rematch. I did pick Wilder to beat him, but I thought Ortiz, being a better boxer, could beat Wilder, and he was outboxing him, and he was beating Wilder on points. But all it took was one. He tried to move out of the way, but he took a hard right hand down the pipe and got dropped. He barely made it back at the count of 10, but he was done. Tough knockout loss for Luis Ortiz. That's 2 shots at Wilder, 2 losses, 2 knockouts, and Wilder just has his number. Ortiz, though, I still think he could compete against any heavyweight in the division and possibly beat any heavyweight in the division, just not Deontay Wilder. He can't take Wilder's power for 12 rounds. He's proven that. I think 2020, though, heading into this year, he's 40 years old now, and he's 31-2 with 21 knockouts, or 26 knockouts. He's the WBC's and the WBA's number 5 contender. He just needs to try to get himself into some kind of an eliminator and go after one of the other world titles, and try to get an opportunity against just one of the other champs, He's really got no choice. But, at 40 years old, he's got to make that decision quick and get back in the ring. He's got nothing to hang his head about. He's still very good. He's just got to get opportunity. I would love to see him against Andy Ruiz. I'd love to see him against Adam Konaki. Those are guys on the rise. Jarrell Miller on the rise. I'd love to see those guys go after him and see what they can do, because he might be looked at as a stepping stone guy that's beatable, and he needs to cash in on an opportunity like that if he gets it. I hope he does, because Ortiz has been the boogeyman for a few years now. And now finishing the year, number 4 in my heavyweight top 10 is the now former unified heavyweight champion, Andy Ruiz Jr. Ruiz entered the year not ranked and really wasn't looked at as a threat. He had signed on with the PBC, but hadn't really done any damage yet. He was a former world title challenger coming in, but his title shot was way back in like 2018 or 2016. And, nobody really just was looking at Andy Ruiz. But in March, or I think it was March or February, Ruiz got a showdown with, Ruiz took on, I forget the guy's name. I think he took on Alexander Dimitrenko and got a knockout win there, impressively. And that was impressive enough once Jarrell Miller was taken out of the fight with Anthony Joshua. Andrew Ruiz went and called Joshua's people, Eddie Hearn, and said, hey, I want to crack at Anthony Joshua in New York, in Madison Square Garden, where Joshua was debuting in the United States. And heading into that fight, I thought he was a live underdog, but I really didn't think I really didn't believe he could beat Anthony Joshua. I really thought it was a very long shot, like most people did. But most people looked at him like Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. I don't think it was that much of a lopsided favoritism, but because Ruiz is a very solid heavyweight, but he went in and shocked the world. He got knocked down on an uppercut in the third round, I'm sorry. And then after that, he came back. Joshua got careless, left himself open. He landed some big shots, put Joshua down, I think a total of 4 times. And then between the 3rd and the 7th round. And then after that, the referee jumped in, stopped the fight in the 7th, waved it off. And Andrew Ruiz scored the biggest upset of the year and one of the biggest upsets of the past 10 years, maybe the biggest, as he became the unified heavyweight champion. But Andrew Ruiz, a lot of celebration there. He really moved up with that win, but he had a mandatory rematch clause in the contract against Joshua. So Joshua would cash in on that, and in December, he wasn't allowed to get out of the year as champ, as he would rematch Joshua. This time he came in, though, 15 pounds heavier, and Joshua came in lighter. And you could tell he had just been eating a lot like he had done the first time. He never really comes in great shape, but you could tell he just wasn't the same guy, and Joshua changed his style. Joshua boxed circles around Ruiz, completely outboxed him, outclassed him, and scored a one-sided 12-round unanimous decision and took back the unified heavyweight title. But you know what? Ruiz has nothing to hang his head about. He asked for a third fight after. Joshua said he would do it at some point, but just not now because he has mandatories due for his world titles. So Ruiz is going to have to sit around and wait and possibly get an opportunity elsewhere. But you know what? Dillian Whyte's calling him out. And I think that's a good option for Ruiz, because if he can beat Dillian Whyte, that sets him up for a shot at the winner of Wilder and Fury, which I think is going to be Wilder. So he can move himself right back into a title fight and a mandatory one this time. So I think Andy Ruiz needs to cash in on that and go after Dillian Whyte. But if he doesn't, he's got other great options. He could take on Adam Konaki. He could take on Jarrell Miller, who's on the rise. He could take on, what's his name, we just talked about, not Dillian Whyte. He could take on Joseph Parker in a rematch. He could take on Luis Ortiz, which I'd love to see that fight. But he's got to get back in the ring and got to get back into shape. And I think he does not need to take a big, long layoff. He's a former world champ now. Guys are going to be willing to fight him. And he really needs to cash in on opportunities. And I think the Dillian Whyte one is a prime one for him. Something he really should think about to get back in the mix. But we'll see how he does. He scored maybe the biggest upset in the past decade. One of the best of the 2000s for sure. And one of the biggest in heavyweight history. And now he has an opportunity to, get back in the mix. He's still young. He's only 30, so he's in his prime still. He's 33-2, 22 knockouts, very solid resume. So hopefully we see him back in the ring at some point. And that was it. So Andy Ruiz, number 4. We had Luis Ortiz, number 5. Alexander Usyk, number 6. And Joseph Parker at number 7. Dillian Whyte at number 7. I'm sorry. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. True Boxing. Been here with the truth.